The draft is over, but as Howie Roseman said, the Eagles are not done yet because there are plenty of players to be had. I mean, just look at the Dallas Cowboys. They just found their new franchise quarterback, Andy Dalton.
Well, hello, friends. Mark Holmes.
I'm a grown-ass man. See, I'm a grown-ass man. Grown-ass man. Hey everybody, King Dingbat here. I'm in my garage with a cigar. It's only a candy cigar because my wife won't let me smoke one after I put that big fat head up in our bedroom. Let's get rid of Dak. At this point, I'd be happy for Dak to be playing for somebody else. And my team stinks. I agree. Stinks.
They laugh about us. We're a disgrace. We suck.
I am now Philly 500's bitch.
Dallas still stinks. Yo, everybody, how you doing? King Dingbat here, and I hope everybody's having a great weekend. Hope you guys are doing well. You know, it is so funny to me to watch Mark Holmes flip out. The guy's flipping out about the Andy Dalton signing. He is losing his mind. People are telling him, oh, this is the insurance policy for Dak Prescott. Oh, Dak must be on his way out. Oh, Andy Dalton could do everything Dak Prescott can do. And he's flipping out. He's about to eat all the carbohydrates in the world, right? And look, I know Jerry Jones is a moron. I know he's a moron. Emperor Palpatine with the electricity shooting out his fingers. I get all that. Okay, the guy's, 185 years old? I mean, I get it. He's a moron. He's a dingbat. I totally understand it. And I know Eagle fans and Giant fans, they're having fun with Dallas. It's like, hey, look, you're talking about the Jalen Hurts pick. Now we're going to give it to you. We're going to give it to you back. And I get it. But in all truthfulness, when I look at the Andy Dalton signing, I honestly think no big deal. It's not a big deal. Big deal. They signed Andy Dalton. You think Andy Dalton is that good? I mean, is Jerry Jones that? Yeah, he is a moron. I give him that. But I can't imagine that anybody really thinks that Andy Dalton, maybe one of the biggest choke artists of the century, okay, guy can never win a big game. He couldn't even win a big game on primetime TV, okay? And if you think he's going to come in and replace Dak Prescott, who's much younger, I don't think it's going to happen. This signing by the Cowboys for Andy Dalton is a backup quarterback. You need a decent backup quarterback in this league, okay? He's a backup quarterback. That's all it is. That's all he is. And I don't see the big deal in it. To be honest with you, I don't think anybody could even put Andy Dalton in Dak Prescott's in his tier. It's not even close. Andy Dalton is maybe a borderline starter at this point. More likely a decent backup quarterback. And that's all they signed him for. So it's fun watching the Cowboys panic and they think that this is the end of Dak and people kind of, give it to him a little bit. I like it. I like it. Believe me, I love it. But in truthfulness, I think that the Cowboys probably did the right thing in signing him to a one-year deal. You should always have a decent quarterback. If anybody understands that, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. So I don't think it's really a big deal. I don't think it's going to interfere with Dak at all. Now, I think Dak and the Cowboys, their contract situation is a lot foggier. I think Dallas is risking a lot by holding out. And if Dak Prescott is playing on another team in a few years, that would not surprise me. But it's not because Andy Dalton's there. It has nothing to do with it. But I just think it's so funny. The reaction of that, man, it's like payback a little bit, because of the Jalen Hurts thing. Now people are kind of giving it back to Mark Holmes and the Cowboys, and it's hysterical. It's hysterical. I had a comment on it. Now let's talk about the greatest franchise in the history of sports, the Philadelphia Eagles, because they are not done adding to this roster, whether it's free agency, whether it's trades, no matter what it is. Howie Roseman has said this much. The Eagles are far from done, and I think the very next move you're going to see, the very next move is going to be them re-signing Jason Peters. I believe they're bringing him back to a one-year deal. There's been some rumors about this. There's been some things saying that the Eagles are already talking to him. So I would not be surprised if Jason Peters comes back in a reserve type role. He won't come back as a starting left tackle. I don't believe that. However, I do think Jason Peters will be back on this roster. And when they get him and they sign him, that's not the end of it. There are still some really good players out there that the Eagles could go after. And there are 3 guys that I specifically hear more about when connected to the Eagles than anybody. And I kind of want to talk about those guys today, okay? The first guy, Yannick Ngakoue. Everybody keeps talking about Yannick Ngakoue. We saw what he did on his Instagram where he, was posting Reggie White and posting pictures like that. And then, you think, oh man, this guy really wants to come to Philly. And we gotta be fair about this. He also did the same thing with the Giants. I think when it comes to Yannick Ngakoue, he just wants out of Jacksonville. He's just done with Jacksonville. And the interesting thing about this situation is they didn't trade him during the draft. They didn't trade him, which means they're most likely looking at a long holdout, a long bitter fight between Yannick Ngakoue and the Jacksonville Jaguars. They both seem to be dug into their positions, and somebody's going to have to blink. Now, for the Eagles to actually have a shot at this guy, for the Eagles to have a realistic shot at Yannick Ngakoue, who, by the way, I would love more than anybody I'm going to mention here. But to have a real shot at him, the Eagles can't trade for him this summer. They can't trade for him now. They couldn't trade for him before the start of the season. I don't believe that's realistic, okay? I believe for the Eagles, the best case scenario would be that the Jaguars and Yannick Ngakoue are at an impasse, and we get to the NFL trade deadline. And once we get to that NFL trade deadline, Jaguars are probably going to move him. At that point, I think they're going to have to move him, and they're going to lose all value. They're not going to have any value. Maybe they get a 3rd-round pick for him, something like that. But I think Yannick Ngakoue, if he gets traded at the trade deadline, this would make the Eagles instant players in going out and acquiring him. Because, one, what do you got? 8 weeks, 9 weeks? I forget what week the trade deadline. They move it, here or there. So, but let's say you're 8 weeks in and you have the trade deadline, or 6 weeks in. You kind of see what Derek Barnett's been doing. You kind of see what Brandon Graham's been doing, and you may make the decision that you're gonna let one of those guys go at the end of the year. At that point, you bring in Yannick Ngakoue. You probably pay him for half a season, something like that. And you make it work. It could work very easy. That would be something very doable. And that, to me, is the real scenario the Eagles need for Yannick Ngakoue. And oh, by the way, with the draft out of the way, I think that's where this thing is headed. I think Yannick Ngakoue will get moved at the trade deadline, which will make the Eagles legitimate players in him. So if you want Yannick, you have to be a little patient. Hang in there. Let's get to the trade deadline, because that's when I think the Eagles would have a legitimate shot. And plus, at that point, they could see, hey, look, Derek Barnett has played really well. We don't need Yannick. Or they could say he's not living up to his 1st-round billing. We did pick up his 5th year, but we'll move him. And they could go ahead and bring in Yannick at that point. Something like that. Or let's say, hey, we're going to let Brandon Graham go at the end of the year. I think that's the real legitimate shot the Eagles have for getting Yannick. I think it's the only shot they have at getting Yannick Ngakoue. Now, the other guy I want to talk about is Jadeveon Clowney. Don't throw them bottles at me. Stop throwing bottles at me. I know people get legitimately pissed off when you bring up Jadeveon Clowney to the Eagles. Everybody hates that cheap shot he made on Carson Wentz. I get it. I get all those kind of things. And a lot of people think, oh, the Eagles would never bring him in because of the cheap shot. And I don't agree. I don't agree. Go back and listen to what Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson said about that shot, about what happened, okay? They knew it was a cheap shot. They didn't really come out and say it. Partly they didn't want to get in trouble with the league. The other part is you never burn your bridges down. You just never. That's bad business. You never burn your bridges. You never say something so bad that it ruins any opportunity for an arrangement in the future, okay? And you have Jadeveon Clowney, who started out wanting $24 million. Then he went down to $20 million. Last I heard, it was like $16.5 million. And he's willing to take a one-year deal. If Jadeveon Clowney maybe comes down even a little more, is willing to take that one-year deal, which he is now, he could end up with the Eagles. I have no doubt in my mind the Eagles, they would sign him for the right price. And just to a one-year deal, to come in add to that team, I could see that happening. I really could. Now, I think the most likely landing spot at this point right here, right now, for Jadeveon Clowney is the New York Giants or the Seattle Seahawks. He's going to either go back or he's going to go to the Giants. That's what I think will probably happen. However, never underestimate the Eagles' value of defensive end and how they value that defensive line. And if he comes to a price, maybe if it's under 15 million, maybe if it's somewhere around 15 million for 1 year, they would take a shot. I definitely think they would. And I think it's a possibility, but he's going to have to probably come down a little bit. He's going to only be a 1 year solution because I don't see him signing long term with the Eagles. And look, the Eagles may do it just for the year, just for the depth, just to add a piece for 1 year. It could happen. So we're going to find out. But I think Jadeveon Clowney, I think he's more likely than people actually think. I think people think, what he did, I don't want the guy. And if you don't want him, I get it. It's not really talking about what we want. I'm just talking about the possibility. I don't think the Eagles would be opposed to getting him for the right price. That's what I'm saying. Now, the last name I want to talk about, and to me, probably would have the most realistic possibility of coming to the Eagles, if they want him, okay, would be Carlos Hyde. Now, I like Carlos Hyde. I think he had over 1,000 yards last year, if I remember correctly. But I think he's a good player. I think he would be a perfect fit, a perfect complement, a perfect fit for with Miles Sanders. Because I think Miles Sanders is going to have a monster year. And I'm going to do a video on Miles Sanders later this week to telling you guys what I think of him. Because I think he may be the key to this whole offense, especially for some of these young wide receivers. But we'll get into that later. But I think Carlos Hyde would be a perfect complement to him. We did bring back Corey Clement. I like Corey Clement, but we don't know if he's healthy. We don't know how good he's going to be. I don't know if you can count him as, hey, he's our short back. He's our short yardage back. He's our complement to Miles Sanders. I don't think you can guarantee that Corey Clement's going to be that guy. They got some other guys. They got Elijah Holyfield. They got some rookies. But you never know what these guys can do because they haven't played. They haven't taken one snap with the Eagles. So we have to wait and see. I think if you could add a guy like Carlos Hyde, I would do it. That would probably be my next move if I was the Eagles. Try to sign Carlos Hyde to like a 1 year, 2 year deal. And let him be a nice complimentary back to Miles Sanders. So when you look at these three guys, Yannick Ngakoue, Clowney, Carlos Hyde, none of them it's impossible for them to come to the Eagles. Some of them you need some luck to happen. Others you need to take less money. But the Eagles, they will definitely be in on all three of these guys. I definitely believe it. That's my thoughts on it. What are your guys' thoughts? Let me know in the comment section. With that said, take care. Talk to you later. Don't be a dingbat.